I accidentally invited the babysitter to do a three-way. She says, "Yes," before I could explain. For reference, my husband and I are in our mid to late 30s, and our sitter is in her early 20s. We have 2 young kids, 5 and 3, and through the pandemic, my husband and I have both been working from home. For a while, we were taking shifts trying to watch the kids while the other had meetings, but eventually we resorted to hiring a sitter sometimes during the day to watch them and keep them occupied so we could work. We'd gone through a couple of sitters before landing on our current one. She's been absolutely fantastic, a dream with the kids, and has been working for us for several months now. It's been such a godsend for us to hide away in our offices on our laptops, undisturbed through our work days, knowing someone is taking care of things on the other side of the door. The screw-up happened yesterday when we decided we wanted to take a night for ourselves, now that restaurants were opening up again in our area. We had the sitter come over and we went out for a night of food and drink, our first date night out at a restaurant in almost 2 years due to the pandemic. Out at dinner was glorious, drinking and flirting and being adults outside in the real world. Feeling like people and not just parents or workers trapped in our home. We felt very energized and we knew how we wanted to spend that energy. But having young kids makes having alone time difficult. Our kids are fussy sleepers sometimes. We were joking to each other, saying we should ask the sitter to stay later and watch the kids so he and I could have some private time uninterrupted. When we hired our first sitter, we took advantage of the fact the kids were occupied by having a few sneaky quickies during the day while we were locked away working. But we hadn't done that in a while now, and the idea of getting some this evening without the risk of a barge-in was very appealing. When we got home, I was a little tipsy. The kids had been put to bed but weren't really settled asleep yet, so my husband went to check on them. I stayed and thanked our sitter for helping us have a wonderful night out. She was very friendly as always and assured us it was no problem. She'd help us out whenever we needed. And here is where I messed up. My tipsy brain thought it would be cute to slyly joke about having her stay and watch the kids longer so my husband and I could have some romantic alone time together. One of those as a joke but testing the water things, which is already crossing a line, but what makes matters worse is how I phrased it. She said we looked so happy and rejuvenated and said we must have had a great time out. I agreed and said it was so amazing and I thanked her so much for letting us escape as man and wife for a night to have some fun. She said something like, "No worries at all, anytime you need me I'm happy to help with anything." To which I say, with a wry smile, "Well, we had been thinking about asking you if you wanted to stay a little longer, so we could, go into the bedroom." Which, in my mind, I was trying to suggest that she stay longer to watch the kids, so my husband and I could do the deed. But that's not how it came out. I understand now what was clearly implied by my phrasing. Her eyes went wide and her voice became hushed and serious as she asked if I was serious. And me, not understanding my screw-up yet, laughed and said I was just teasing, but we'd certainly really enjoy it. We'd done it with the other sitters in the past, but we didn't want to make her too uncomfortable, and it was completely fine if she wasn't comfortable with it. God, that phrasing. I think I'm treating the subject delicately, and that I'm asking for an understandable if slightly weird thing, like, do you want to babysit our kids while we have a bang in another room? And she's responding like she's shocked I'm asking, but is being super cool about it. She stammers a bit and says she'd love to, but can't tonight. And I try to drop it, saying it's no big deal, thinking that we're just going to do it anyway. It just would have been nice to have a guard. But she keeps insisting she would, but she can't. And she keeps stressing she can't. And I'm starting to get that she's implying she has her period. And I'm tipsy and I don't really know what that has to do with things or if I should be offering her anything. But I just keep assuring her it's no problem at all and at this point just want her to leave so I can jump my husband. She continues to be apologetic and says she'd love to any other time. She thinks we're amazing and it's such a huge fantasy for her. And that's when something clicks in my brain and I get what we're talking about. I start to panic a bit and backpedal, saying forget that I even asked. But she doesn't want me to feel like she's blowing me off or making excuses. And I'm trying to get out of it, but I'm in too deep to say there was a misunderstanding because she's so into it and supportive, and eventually we awkwardly hug and she leaves. I freak out and run into our bedroom to my husband and spill out the story about what just happened, and he starts howling with laughter and I'm just stressed out. He's been making fun of me ever since, calling us swingers now. He's been telling me everything will be fine, just tell her it was an honest mix-up. But this girl is great with our kids and has been a dream for helping us out. I don't want to lose her as a sitter, and I'm afraid I just messed it all up. I have no idea what to do now. As I see it, I have these options. A. Pretend like I don't even remember asking. I'd been too drunk and have no idea what she's talking about when she tries to bring it up. The coward's option, potentially mean and childish, but theoretically sparing all of us the embarrassment. B. Explain truthfully what happened, that it was a misunderstanding and risk making her feel completely embarrassed for being enthusiastically game and making our relationship with this amazing sitter very awkward. Or she might just have a big laugh over it. The adult option, own your mistakes and clear the air. C. Ghost her. Sell our home and move and change our names. The vacuum cleaner repairman option. Or D. Just roll with it and have a three-way with this girl. The heroic option. In short, accidentally propositioned our babysitter for a three-way. She seems down, but now I'm panicking. Oh, as an update, thank you for all your responses. I went with plan B, potentially leaving the door open for D. I had a chat with her yesterday, explaining everything, and we both had a good laugh about it all. She's incredible and understanding and cool and made it very not awkward. We all admitted to a fun, mutual attraction, but we've agreed to keep things professional for now. She says babysitting is just a temporary thing for her, so when she's ready to move away, we may have an opportunity for some fun in the future when we're not in an employer-employee relationship. Thank you for all your encouragement, wise words, kind words, and funny words. I'm feeling much less stressed now. Success! So I have to assume that the narrator was not alone in thinking that option D was a joke at first, right? So consider my mind blown that it kind of ended up being a potential thing that you all agreed to. Like, wow! Also, best letter for that particular option. D for the D. Good luck explaining that to the next sitter who is minding the kids while it happens. Maybe you'll all get even more lucky depending on how tipsy you are when you explain it to her. A rolling cycle of your relationship getting more and more open with each sitter is kind of comically incredible. But back to actual commentary on the story. I must say that your unfortunate phrasing may rival that of Tobias Funke in Arrested Development. You even accidentally doubled down, implying that you'd done it with other sitters before. Amazing work, everybody! I should add that the narrator did search this user's profile out of morbid curiosity to see if they'd followed through with the sitter in the 2 years since posting, and sadly enough there were no more posts or updates from that particular profile. Ah well, here's hoping everyone had fun and moved on. It's a fun story. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, linked below. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling my fiancée to get her insecurities in check and grow up after she humiliated my coworker? Recently, I, 25, got engaged to my amazing fiancée, a 24-year-old called Amy. I was the happiest I've ever been when Amy said yes and was nothing but excited for our wedding. We started planning the venues, the dates, and the invites. When talking about who to invite, we both agreed to invite our co-workers, as we've worked in our respective jobs for years and we like everyone we work with. As I checked off that list, Amy spoke up and said everyone from my job can come except for my work friend, Tally. Tally is also one of my close friends, so this surprised me that Amy didn't want to invite her. She's met Tally multiple times and there didn't seem to be any issues. When I asked why, she just said she doesn't like her and finds our friendship uncomfortable, saying she thinks that Tally is the kind of person to try to sway taken men and be the center of attention. After talking some more to see where she got this idea, it turned out this was based on nothing but Tally's looks, even as Amy admitted that Tally is always very kind to her. But still, Amy is adamant about Tally not going and said she makes her insecure. Amy is a beautiful woman, so I don't know why she feels this way. I told Amy that if it makes her feel comfortable not having Tally at the wedding, then that's fine. But before invitations go out, I wanted to speak to her privately to let her know, to save embarrassment. Amy agreed, and that was really that. We didn't speak on the matter afterwards. A week or so later, I went into work and Tally just started to ignore me, only really talking if it was work-related. I was confused as it isn't just her, our co-workers have started to ignore her and acting strange towards me. So I contacted her boyfriend only for him to be sarcastic on the phone. I asked what the problem was when he asked if I actually didn't know what had happened. He then filled me in. Turned out a few days earlier, Amy came to my work on my day off with invitations. I had no idea she'd even made them yet, and she handed out everyone an invite in front of Tally, then said to Tally, "You aren't invited. Women like you aren't welcome." Which has sparked everyone suggesting that Tally is my other woman. Since then, she's been approached by some sleazebag guys at work and shunned by the women. She's now looking for another job. This really made me angry, and I apologized profusely as I didn't know. When I got home that night, I confronted Amy about this. She denied it at first, but then told me she did it, but it's now not an issue because Tally's quitting her job. I flipped out, saying she clearly didn't trust me to say that, and that she crossed a line doing all of this behind my back. Amy didn't see the problem and got upset, asking me why I'm so mad, with me responding, "If we're really going to get married, you need to get your insecurities in check and grow up." I stayed at a friend's, but I've had texts from Amy, her friends, and her mother saying that I'm behaving like a complete jerk for this and that Amy doesn't deserve this treatment. Let me explain a few things. 1. I've made many attempts to speak to Tally privately to find out what was happening prior to contacting her boyfriend. She brushed me off, saying she either had work to do or that there was nothing to talk about. No one would really speak to me, so I contacted her boyfriend as a last resort. Her boyfriend says he's going to pass on to Tally what I said to him on the phone. 2. The wedding is currently on hold. That's also why I'm staying at my friend's place. I need some distance to figure stuff out. I made the post because of all the texts. Wow, I'm getting a lot of responses to this, and I've got to say thank you to everyone for the advice you're giving me. But there's one thing I have to clear up. The whole suggestion that I may have actually cheated on Amy with Tally. All I ask is, can men and women not be friends without anything untoward happening? Nothing has or will ever happen with me and Tally. No feelings, nothing adult, absolutely nothing. Tally is happy and in love, and her boyfriend is someone I also consider a close friend. I was happy with Amy prior to this, and Tally is more like a sister to me. I find it pretty disturbing that people are even suggesting that I did anything with Tally. Ask yourself this. Why in God's green earth would I let and encourage Amy to meet Tally in the first place if anything had happened? That would be messed up beyond belief. Also, I don't work in an office. I have no idea where people are getting this idea from since I never said where or what industry I work in. I work in a retail chain. Nothing special. Another question that keeps coming up, what am I planning to do about Tally? Unfortunately, due to what Amy has done, all I can really do is damage control. Of course, I'm planning to explain to everyone what has happened. I don't want Tally to be going through this in the workplace. She is a genuinely kind person who doesn't deserve any of it. I'm actually on my way to speak to our boss at the moment to see what can be done. Tally's boyfriend is also saying he'll speak to her on my behalf and see if he can get her to talk to me. So, back to my Amy problem. Am I the jerk here? And sadly, that was the last update from this particular story, so either both his social life and upcoming marriage came crashing down around him, or Amy murdered him. Jokes aside, I'm going to have to hope that he didn't marry her, as she seems like kind of an underhanded person with deep insecurities that she really should be sorting out before she enters into what should be the ultimate relationship of trust with someone. Also, a lot of the comments were indeed romanticizing the author and Tally as some sort of Jim and Pam office romance, but I think that speaks pretty poorly of how we view female and male friendships. Just for the people in the back, men and women can just be pals. I sincerely hope that my theoretical future fiancé doesn't have these same kinds of insecurities, otherwise that will be a very short engagement indeed. Hopefully the author went on to a better relationship later. Customer wants to leave and take the recipe with them. So recently, a customer at my work told us that they were no longer going to use us to manufacture their products for them. We felt this was quite out of the blue as they'd used us for more than 40 years without any problems. We got over this, however, they then asked us to give them the recipe for their product so they could take it to a competitor to make. Now, for context, when they started using us in the 70s and 80s, they provided us with their recipe to make their product the right texture, firmness, and look just how they wanted it. Over the years, we've spent time and money finding new chemicals when certain ones have been discontinued, altering the mix of chemicals so the products are still how they want them, and developing the recipe further to make it more efficient and provide better results. The way we were making their product now is completely different to how we were at the start. Because of this, my boss was unhappy with what they were asking of us. But, complying with their request, he gave them the recipe to their products. The original recipe, that is. It's fair to say they're not that happy that they're going to have to spend their time and money to update it, as we have over the last 40 years. So the two main guesses people keep writing in with, no, our product is not food, and it's also not marital aids like many people are asking. And another update to be clearer. We make X. We've made X for 100 years and expect for small orders. It's always to customer specification. For example, a matte blue color with a soft texture. We don't have contracts to supply X to customers, they just order it like you'd order online. This former customer had come to us 40 years ago and asked to get X from us, and had given a recipe on how they'd gotten it previously from someone else. Over the years, they kept coming back to us for X, but this recipe was no longer used. We still made X to their specification, but with different chemicals, dyes, pigments, and processes. Everyone was happy. Now that they're going to another business, they wanted to know exactly how we make our X for them. We didn't want to give this up and instead gave them back the recipe they gave us 40 years ago and said that that's all they'd get, as everything after was us. Because X is our main product. If we told the customer how we made X for them, they could give it to a competitor who could figure out how we make all of our X and run us out of business. Yeah, I think it's a fair guess that in this case the customer has found another supplier who's promising they could manufacture the same product for cheaper. I don't know if that falls within the bounds of jerkiness as much as a cutthroat business attitude, but yeah, it was your own research and development, and I would hazard a guess that any court would rule in your favor in terms of what you did to develop the product with new materials and streamline the manufacturing process. There's a lot of nuance here in how ruthless or money-grabbing your customer was being. It could have been that they needed to save money to avoid layoffs or shutting down, so who knows if they're that bad. But the author and their company really were under no obligation to hand over their new recipes, and I can't fault their decision. I mean, why would you give a competitor your recipe for making your product? Turning wage theft into time theft by showing up on time? My job is 12-hour shifts with a flexible start time. You must show up before 7, but you can start as early as 6 if you want, and most people opt to show up before 6:30. The last person is usually in before 6:45. We let people go home at the end of the shift on a first-in, first-out basis. In theory, you should be able to go home after you've worked your 12 hours, but in practice there's usually a disparity of arrival times between the outgoing shift and the oncoming shift. For example, I may have started at 6:15 as the fourth person in, and I'm relieved by the fourth person in on the next shift, but that person might show up at 6:45, making me stay 30 minutes late. I can't complain to that person because it's their right to show up at 6:45. I talked to my supervisor about this because it had been happening pretty frequently. She said the company won't pay me for the extra time because, according to her, it's my choice to arrive earlier than 7, and that's just the risk I take in being early. She also said she's not willing to move any people around to cover my role to get me out on time, even though they regularly do that to let people take unscheduled bathroom breaks and do training. She said it'd be different if I wasn't relieved by 7 because someone was really late, but before 7, they don't care. Solution: I show up at 6:59 now, and I'm always the last one in. I leave later than everyone, but I'm also guaranteed to never work a single extra unpaid minute. It also means that the person I relieve is having to stay late because, again, the last person usually shows up before 6:45. It also means I usually get relieved earlier than 12 hours. I still have to stay in the building until I reach 12 hours, tracked with badge cards, but ultimately they're still paying me for 10 to 15 minutes of wandering around or reading a book. So basically, they went from regularly stiffing me 15 to 30 minutes of pay to regularly having to pay me to do 15 to 30 minutes of nothing. A lot of people are asking about the unscheduled bathroom breaks. Probably sounds worse than it is. So we get 15-minute breaks every 90 minutes. And generally, if you have to use the bathroom, that's when you go. You have about 8 opportunities throughout the shift to do it. And then on top of that, you can still go between breaks if you really need it. That's what I mean by unscheduled. We get paid on those breaks, it doesn't deduct from the 12-hour time card. Well, you were in the right, but I would say you're probably also first in line for things like layoffs, which sucks. This sounds like some sort of production line job, and I guess those often operate in as penny-pinching and exploitative a way as they can. So no one could really blame you for working out a way to get paid for your shift whilst doing as little work as possible. Because if they legally could treat you worse for more money on their end, you can be sure that they would. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories. Or if you want to check out some great music, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, give Am I the Genius a shot. Everything linked in the description.